All right. That was a technical difficulty, but we back. So anyway, college football season is about to start. There's a lot of enthusiasm, especially coming out of Coral Gables, coming out of a lot of the contenders and things like that. It seems the media is getting behind the Miami Hurricanes this particular year. I even saw today some media personality said, "Hey, Miami Hurricanes have everything to go undefeated this particular year," and that's great to hear. You know what I mean? That's great to hear. I know I've been a, what do you want to call it? I've been critical of Coach Cristobal's tenure here for the 2 years that he's been here, and I feel like the criticism was warranted. Me and a few other people that have been critical of his particular tenure, I think we've been warranted in our criticism of what's been going on here. But with that being said, it's a new year. We could potentially wipe the slate clean in some particular sorts. You know, the stakes are as high as the stakes are as high as they've ever been, right? Probably dating back. Now I will say that the stakes have not been this high, probably since 2002, maybe even 2003, right? Because obviously after the 2002 season, a lot of talent was lost, but many people probably didn't predict that it would be such a downfall that it would be, right? And the 2003 season by Miami Hurricane standards was somewhat of a step backwards, even though we did happen to win, double digit games that particular season, but it was still a step back, especially from what transpired in 2000, 2001, as well as 2002. All right, so I will get on board with that the stakes have not been this high in over 20 years, right? Um, know about the roster, know about you know Ruben Bain, know about Francis Mary Noah, who are guys that chose to come here fresh out of high school, along with Jacoby George, along with Xavier Restrepo, Jalen Rivers, um, and some of the guys that are in the secondary as well as the linebacking core, right? So it's a lot to be excited about, right? A lot to be excited about. Some people are a little bit more pessimistic. Some people are a little bit more optimistic. I think I fall in that particular category. Um, and the the talking point or the selling point, should I say, for some of the people that are of the mindset that, hey, look, don't worry about what happened in the past. The past is irrelevant at this particular point because there are things that are going on now. There's a commitment right now. There's an investment right now that has not been here ever, probably. So we shouldn't compare previous years that had unrealistic expectations, which at the time we probably thought that they were somewhat realistic expectations. We shouldn't expect for those type of talking points or that type of mindset to gravitate over this particular year. We should erase what has happened prior to this year, and we should probably QB what's up. We should treat this upcoming season as if we are coming off of the 2002 season, right? So that kind of seems to be somewhat of the mindset that I see going on right now. Um, PFF. I see that they're back as being the darling of the fan base. I saw that they ranked defensive line as the number three. I saw another graphic where it was talking about just the total amount of sacks that our defensive line has over their career, and it's big time. You know what I mean? It's big time. And again, it's not people that like look. They can't hold back excitement. They're ready. There's some things that they've been hearing in camp. I saw some clips of Sam Brown. Some people feel like, hey, look, he's going to be, an absolute stud this year. And again, that's great. A lot of that particular stuff is great. Like I said, my dog QB posted something um, that he saw in which it was like Coach Cristobal got here. It was an absolute rebuild from the ground up, and so now it's time. It's time to show the crown and achievement. And again, man, we can have that discussion. We've had that particular discussion, whether it was a rebuild. My guy South Coast Kane asked the question: is this a rebuild or is it? Well, no, Cuban Kane, should I say? Asked the question: is this a rebuild or is this a remodel? So we've had that particular discussion, but we can move forward, right? So we got the Florida Gators on the schedule. First game of the season, a rivalry game, a game that we don't often, play. The last two games that we played against the Gators, well, especially the last two games that we played against the Gators. Well, no, the last game we played against the Gators, we should have won that game, right? There was some key plays that didn't happen, that didn't go our way. They ended up, setting the tone for the game. Two plays that just come to mind. The Kadarius Toney touchdown, where he literally took a short pass, broke multiple tackles and scored a touchdown. Then also we got the play with Jeff Thomas in the end zone, dropping the touchdown. So, I mean, the games have been close, right? We should have pulled the game out. And even dating back to, when Tebow was here, you know what I mean? That game wasn't as bad as the score ended up being. And obviously, they went on to win a national championship that particular year. So on paper, on paper, you know what I mean? We look a lot better than Florida, right? Um, Coaching staff on paper, again, looks a lot better than Florida, right? We are going up to their particular, we are going up to the, we are going up to the swamp, and so it's allowing for some of the Mario fans to bring back images of 2021 when he took an Oregon team up to, Ohio State and beat them. You know what I mean? While missing, some key guys. And what ended up being a game that pretty much I watched that game. That game pretty much was decided by a turnover. CJ Stroud threw an interception that game, and I think that particular turnover ended up being the deciding factor in that game because Oregon couldn't stop them, but on the same accord, or Ohio State couldn't stop Oregon, right? So it was one of those type of games that kind of went back and forth. But again, like I said, CJ Stroud threw the interception, and Oregon, took advantage of it. I think both teams offensively, like I said, they just couldn't be stopped. You know what I mean? So, but I know some people will probably say, well, maybe if Oregon had Thibodeau and they had Justin Flo, that 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 score could have been a lot worse. Maybe Oregon could have done more defensively, to go along with what they did, offensively, in many particular stretches. But I'm ready to get the season started back, man. Like I said, I've announced it on me and Trucking. We're going to be, covering some other teams. But again, when I'm on here, it'll be solely Miami because I know some people that's all they want to hear about, and I have no problem with that. And I um, respect my subs, right? Individuals that want to hear about Miami. So if I'm on here solo, it's strictly gonna be about Miami. But me and Truckin do a show, which we do shows on Friday and Saturday based on how my schedule is. I will be talking about Syracuse and I will be talking about Michigan State. So it's gonna be interesting because especially me watching Syracuse and knowing that we play Syracuse this upcoming year, it's gonna be interesting to see how they go through the season and obviously how we go through the season to see whether or not that particular matchup at the end of the year, if that matchup has any implications, if that matchup at the end of the season is a game that means something, or it's just another game where we can just nah QB. I switched it up. I said I'm not gonna talk about Wisconsin. I was thinking about doing it, but I said nah, because I'm really kind of intrigued by Michigan State. I really am. I want to see what all the hype was about in reference to Aiden Childs because obviously from a transfer portal standpoint, at one point in time they felt like he was the best quarterback in the portal. A lot of potential. So yeah, so I'm gonna keep on watching Michigan State. You know what I mean? So, but obviously if Michigan State plays Wisconsin, I'm gonna have to watch the game to kind of see what's going on. And I see the TVD did win the job up there in Wisconsin. I think you shared that on Twitter. So, so that's gonna be interesting. You know what I mean? So, we're actually gonna get to see whether or not It was Miami holding Tyler Van Dyke back, or it was just look Tyler Van Dyke. You had a flash in the pan, a couple of games, and it is what it is. So we'll see. You know what I mean? But no, I'm not going to be talking about Wisconsin this year. Even though I initially said I was, but I switched it. I said but I am staying in the Big Ten though. So like I said, we'll talk about Michigan State this year in Syracuse along with Miami. Um, I don't know what's been going on because I get a lot of information about what's going on with the team from Twitter. And since I no longer am a part of the Inside the U message board, you know what I mean. I just said to hell with that. I don't. I want to be over there. I've been over there over a decade, so I said I'm just gonna bow out gracefully, So, but I get a lot of information from Twitter, but because of the current landscape and the current climate that we're in, my Twitter feed has been bombarded with political stuff, so I haven't been able to see as much of the stuff pertaining to the team as I want to. But it seems like my algorithm is kind of getting back to where it was because I'm seeing I've been seeing a lot more um, Miami stuff as of late. So so that's good. And like I said, with the season being right around the corner, literally next week, literally next week, to me it's kind of messed up because I gotta figure out how I'm gonna watch the game because I'm scheduled to work that day, and so the game is gonna be coming on as I'm on my commute to work. So I was telling one of my buddies. I said, man, my job is kind of laid back, so I can probably watch the game while I'm at work. Um, but I would much rather watch it in its entirety where I don't have to go through the ebbs and flows of what's going on because I'm at work, so I want to be focused on my job. But then at the same time, I'm sitting up here watching the game. But obviously, if we're winning the game and we actually win the game, then my mood will be fine. But if we don't win the game and I'm at work, because I'm at work for 12 hours, so it's gonna be kind of hard to kind of balance that. So I was kind of thinking like, well, hey, maybe I can just watch the game after I get off like the next morning because I know it'll be up on YouTube so I can watch the condensed version of it. But then the hard thing about that is I know people are gonna be on Twitter talking about it, YouTube is gonna be talking about it. So it'd be real hard for me to just kind of not see any of that particular stuff for the duration of the rest of my workday until I get to the house. So I'm still trying to figure out what I'm gonna do, for that. I wish they were playing this weekend because I'm off this weekend. But it is what it is. But it's adulting, so you have to certain sacrifices that you have to make based on your work schedule. But it is what it is. Um, like I said, I'm confident that we can get the job done. You know what I mean? You have to, like I said, just from what I'm hearing, things seem to be looking better. But again, it's kind of hard to listen to some of the individuals that cover the team, that talk about the team, and say that it's different now when y'all have been saying this for a long period of time. So, South Coast Kane, what's up? So again, it's kind of hard. It's kind of like what's going on in the greater landscape right now, where people are looking at what they deem legacy media or old media, depending on how you depict it, where it's like y'all have somewhat lost the trust of the people, and now y'all are trying to get back into the good graces, while the quote unquote new media, they're starting to get access and they're starting to talk about, you know, topics and be on top of things that y'all used to be on top of, right? But some of the new media is somewhat compromised in many aspects. You know what I mean? So it kind of is what it is, right? I think for me, what I've been able to see, the general consensus seems to be that this playoffs a bust this particular year, right? And I know me, South Coast, Cuban, and a few others, we've kind of looked at it from the standpoint of, okay, well, if we have a good season this year, flash in the pan, a lot of production is going to be walking out of the door going into the next year. So do you kind of take 11-1 this year and then kind of fall back to 8-4 the following year? You know what I mean? So, but the more I kind of look at, kind of the more that I think about it, it's like I don't care, man. You know what I mean? We can just live for this. We can live for this one particular year right here, because it seems that the checkbook is open. So if they need to buy another team next year, they'll buy another team next year. And I think it's an easier selling point, in my opinion, um, to players that may want to enter the portal, um, if they look and see that, well, hey, look, such and such went down to Miami to improve their draft stock. They're on a good team, which means they're gonna be televised a little bit more. So it may be a good selling point. You know what I mean? So that's kind of I guess that's kind of the way that I kind of, as they say, compartmentalize with that. But it's gonna be a big game, man. It's gonna be a big game. I think obviously Gator fans, they're gonna say what they want to say, but I mean realistically, and this is just not me being biased, but maybe it is me being biased. But I do think that they have to think in some forms that Miami's better than us on paper, right? Now whether or not Billy Napier and his staff will possess the ability to put their guys in better position, that's to be decided. I saw a Gator reporter. Um, they spoke about, well, they're more confident in their wide receiving group this year, and they have some question marks about the offensive line, right? So that's not what you want to tell. That's not what you want to tell your fan base, right? That you have problems with the offensive line, and you have arguably on paper. Again, I have to continue to say on paper because you got to see how all this stuff comes together. But on paper, you're going to be facing one of the premier defensive lines, not just in the ACC, but we're talking. Knock my thing over. Not just one of the best defensive lines in the ACC, but one of the best defensive lines just in all of college football. So you don't want to have offensive line problems, and we're the first game. We're going to be the first game of your schedule. You know what I mean? So drop something on the ground, and then stuff goes haywire. But anyway, so I'm looking for it to be a competitive game, at least for the first half, because obviously I think Florida's gonna come out ready to play hard in front of their home crowd, and then I think our depth should take over in the second half. Um, I don't really know what approach we're probably gonna be doing. We have I think we have Gators probably going to do a lot of misdirection. I mean, that'd be interesting. I mean, that's one of the things that um, I think we've had trouble with. Guys doing some misdirection. Obviously, they lost Trevor Etienne, but it seems like they are kind of happy with the. They're kind of happy with the. They're kind of happy with some of the younger guys that they have. So like I said, I think it should be a good game, right? I know Cuban Kane, he has he has some very interesting takes, but I do think one particular take is kind of valid, right? Because I know a lot of us ragged on LT and things like that, and for good measure because we thought maybe he should have played better. But one of the things that Cuban K did bring up, and I thought was an interesting point, was that in many instances, LT did command, what I mean, more than one person on him. So it's going to be up to his replacements, which I don't think the defensive tackles that we got, I don't think we have a guy or picked up a guy in the portal that brings the same type of quickness and explosiveness that he had at the defensive tackle spot. Now, they probably may play harder, they may be more consistent, but the aspect of it is that those guys are going to have to, you know what I mean, garner some double teams in order for our edges to kind of get off. But I think Ruben Bain's going to be fine anyway. He came to Miami with a great skill set already. He wasn't just one of those guys that come to college and all they have is a dip or they just use speed and all this stuff. Like he has a whole assortment of pass rushing moves. I haven't really got a chance to watch any of Tyler Barron. You know what I mean? I know the PFF numbers that he had in terms of pressures and stuff like that. They were very, very notable. You know what I mean? So he looks to be one of those guys. But one of the things that we do have to take into consideration, right? And I always say this is, and this is one of the problems going back to like Tyreek McCord, where during the golden tenure, a lot of people said, "Well, hey man, we need to get Tyreek McCord on the field because he can get sacks." But it's too a defensive end. That's not his sole responsibility, and that was kind of the kind of somewhat of the negative that we had with like a Chad Thomas, because Chad Thomas was a guy that was stronger. He wasn't gonna get out. He wasn't gonna get the sacks, but he was good at setting the edge, right? Whereas Tyreek McCord was probably a much better pass rusher, but when he got in the game and teams ran the ball to his side, he wasn't as effective, right? So that's kind of some of the things that I've kind of heard about. Tyler Barron says like, he looks, just like a pass rush guy, whereas you have a King Mesidor who I feel like is adequate at doing both, setting the edge as well as being able to get to the quarterback. So I think that's something that Ruben Bain is going to have to show um, going into this next particular year. And I think he will do that. But that's going to be the first thing. I forgot who said it, but they said defensive lineman, you have to earn the right, you know what I mean, to rush the passer. And what does that mean? That means that you have to stop the run first. So going back to the PFF graphic about all the sacks that we got and things like that, that's a pretty statistic. That's pretty, but in order to get to that, we got to be able to stop the run, right? And so again, like I said, we beefed up the middle, so we should be able to stop the run. But again, we gotta see it on paper. Wonder how the Wild and Maribel will perform. QB. I mean, I feel the same way because I'm not just going to go out and assume that this collection or this assortment of offensive linemen that we have this year is just as good as what we had last year. I'm not going to say that. Now, obviously, we can say that Jalen Rivers another year here, so he should take a step. Okay, Francis Mary Noah as a true freshman, he should take another step, which means that by default he should be better than he was last year. Inez Cooper, another guy, he should be better than he was. But I don't feel like Zach Carpenter is going to be as good as Matt Lee. I do not feel like our left guard, whoever that is, whether that's Pancake, whether that's Rodriguez or any of the guys that are in contention for that spot, I don't think they're going to be as good as the guy from Alabama. So, kind of by default, if anything, we could look at maybe the offensive line maybe taking somewhat of from an overall standpoint, overall, not just individually, because we have three guys that can improve from what they had, but then the two guys that are replacing them, I think that their skill level is not as high as the guys that were there first, strictly just based on an experience standpoint. But also, you have the same thing where maybe Jalen Rivers doesn't take as big of a step. Maybe Francis Mary Noah may have a situation where he has what they call the sophomore slump, which that's kind of a real thing. You know what I mean? IMAX, what's up? Which I hopefully he doesn't. You know what I mean? Because I know from a PFF standpoint, from a freshman standpoint, he did well from just a grading, right? But that's going to have to improve because I think like his overall is like a 63 based on PFF metrics. So in reality, we're looking for him to make anywhere from a 10 to 15-point jump in order for it to be deemed to be a successful sophomore campaign because there's no way he could go from 63 to maybe 67 or 68 and think that that's going to be much better than what we saw because in many instances we will put And kudos to the staff, right? As much flack as we give Shannon Dawson, as much flack as we give a lack of tight end involvement and things like that, they had to make sure that the freshmen, in many instances, look, we're gonna put the tight end over here to help with blocking because we know you're a freshman, right? You know that the strength may not be where it needs to be. Having to go out here and play against guys that are have been in school a little bit more because Coach Hayes made mention of the guy from North Carolina who pretty much took Francis to school in many aspects, right? But to counterbalance that, obviously Francis has been working against obviously Ruben Baines, working against Tyler Barron. He's been working against some of the younger pass rushers that we have. So, you know, he should be much better prepared. But still, it's kind of one of those situations, kind of like practice, right? I always go back to a particular story back in my junior college days, right? You would sit there and you would rep against the offense all the time. So much so to the point that when they come out in certain formations, um, I know what play they're gonna run. So I remember this one play. We were in a cover three look, right? So but I knew what play the offense was running. I knew we were in cover three. They wanted us to be in cover three, and they wanted to hit the slot receiver on the seam route, right? So what ended up happening was I already knew this. So they sent the guy out to the flat, and so by definition, I'm supposed to ride the slot receiver so far up the field and then get back to my flat responsibility. But I knew that they never threw the ball to the flat because that's not what they were looking for. So instead of going to the flat, I just went on ahead and just kept riding with the slot receiver, and the quarterback still threw the ball because he didn't make a read, he didn't look over there to the other slot to throw it. So I ended up intercepting the ball, right? So the offensive coach, he was kind of upset about it. But the reason I'm telling you this story is that with Francis repping against our good defensive linemen and stuff like that, at the same time, it's like, all right, Ruben Bain. All right, I know what his favorite movie is, so let me prepare for this. All right, well, Tyler Barron is over here. All right, I know what his favorite movie is, so let me prepare for that. Or any of the young guys. All right, I know what they want to do. But when you're going into a game against a guy that you haven't been practicing against, you got to figure out what he's going to do first and foremost. Now, you can watch film study and all this stuff like that to maybe get prepared for it, and vice versa. The defensive line from the other team, they'll watch a film and say, okay, this is what he kind of struggled in. We're gonna see if he's improved as much, right? So, but that's kind of one of those things. It's kind of like, yeah, iron is sharper than iron, but then sometimes you bring in some different iron and you got to try to see if you can sharpen your iron against that particular iron, right? So I think that's going to be interesting. But like I say, it is great that they are getting reps. Him and Jalen Rivers, as well as the entire offensive line, they're getting reps against what is going to be one of the better defensive lines. Again, on paper, one of the best defensive lines in the entire country, right? But we'll see how that all comes together. You think QB wide receiver chemistry will issue? QB that was one of the things that I kind of thought about, especially with Sam Brown coming in, right? Um, because I was like that with all the guys that came in after the spring because it's like y'all have to speed up, y'all have to learn um, the terminology, learn all type of stuff like that. But I think it is gonna be interesting, right? I think I heard I was listening to Utah, and matter of fact, no. I was in the locker room, right? Maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I shouldn't say this because it was in the locker room. But based on what's being said, they're giving Cam Ward a lot more of a leash and has a lot more say so in what's going on in the offense. Um, but as far as chemistry, I mean, he's gonna be here for 1 year, but not even a year to be honest, because depending on how our season is going, I mean, he very well could be his last game here could be in November, and he immediately goes to draft preparation. So it won't be exactly 1 year. It'll be 9, 10 months or something like that. But it's in the gist of it, it's a year. But I think they should be fine, man. You know what I mean? I think they should be fine. The thing that's gonna be interesting about it, right? Because there was a clip. I did happen to see a clip, kind of in the midst of all of the political stuff that's on my timeline, because the Florida State fans were making a joke about somebody threw an interception in practice. Xavier Streppo was diving to the ground. It was two DBs converging on it, and they intercepted the ball. But obviously, if Xavier Streppo was in the game or in on that particular play, then obviously you assume that it was Cam Ward throwing the ball. So that's what's going to be interesting to me because QB, again, I have to go back to you. You made this particular point, and we kind of, after doing some research, we all kind of agreed that this particular offense is going to be built off of what Xavier Streppo does in terms of options, right? You know what I mean? So a lot of instances it was like, oh, well, TVD's only throwing about an X and all this stuff like this. But I mean, that's what the offense is. I mean, that's just what the offense is. Now, Cam Ward may try to push the ball a little bit more, but again, which that could have been based on the offense that he was in. But again, if you go back to PFF, over 50% of his passes last year were between 0 and 5 yards. So yeah, 0 and 5 yards at Washington State. Now, obviously, it's a completely different offense. You know what I mean? But that does kind of tell you a little bit about it. Which again, you could say, oh well, the offensive line, they weren't going to protect him long enough to push it down the field, so that's what it is and all this stuff. But again, we have to understand the air raid offense is an offense that has to compensate for a deficiency up front, but they still have to find a way to be aggressive and find a way to attack. So in many instances, it's like, all right, well, if we throw a swing pass, that's an extension of the run game, right? So while it's going to be labeled as a passing attempt, it's really just like, all right, no, no, this is just a run, right? It's behind the line of scrimmage, so it's really a run because the play is starting behind the line of scrimmage, and we're looking to see if we can get 5, 6, maybe even bust it for 20, 30 yards, right? So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not there's still the driving force to kind of work Xavier Streppo between that 5 and 10 yard thing. And then when the defense kind of tries to clamp down on it, then we try to hit them over the top, with a guy like a Sam Brown or even Jacoby George, because Jacoby George does have the ability to stretch the field and get behind people, right? We saw it in the bowl game. He dropped the ball, but he was able to get behind the defense, right? Um, I know people are still talking about the involvement of the tight ends. Reports are, oh well, man, the tight ends are a lot more involved, and I personally, I can't see it because I always go back to it's just one football, right? So you got David Martinez, he got to get fed. Mark Fletcher got to get fed. Xavier Streppo got to get fed. Sam Brown came here because he wants to get fed. Jacoby George, probably his mindset, his attitude, even with Sam Brown here, I can just tell by his demeanor. Like we're teammates at the end of the day, but I think each one of those three guys feel like, no, I'm number one, right? And I'm going to work as such. You know what I mean? So I think all three guys have a mindset of like, I'm a number one. You know what I mean? So that's gonna be something interesting to see. But I don't see a situation where the tight end involvement uh just picks up that much more because again, I mean you could just go back to it. There's no examples whether from the NFL on down where you have a situation where you have 2 to 3 wide receivers that have the numbers that we have, and then there's a tight end that you can throw in there, right? Like the closest example we can get to is maybe 2019 LSU because I went back and looked at those numbers. Like they had Jamar Chase, Jefferson, they had Terrace Marshall, and I believe Thaddeus Moss. I think he may have chipped in with like 500 yards. But at the same time, you got to look at how much Joe Burrow threw the football, right? And I don't think our offense is going to look like that whatsoever. So I just do not see a situation where the tight end and like this massive adjustment or this massive focus is going to go towards getting the tight end the football. I don't see it because you got three guys that you got to feed, and at the same time, one of the other issues that we talked about was, well, we didn't see that many running back screens, right? We didn't see that many checkdowns, right? So Cam Ward is going to be more cerebral than Tyler Van Dyke. So again, if anything, the running backs may be more involved in the pass game from a percentage standpoint than the tight end. So I mean, I don't see that. Me personally, I didn't never really jump on that train simply because of you can't brag about having three receivers over 600 some odd yards and then think that the tight end is going to have 500 or 600 yards himself. It doesn't work like that because our offense didn't work like that, right? So I mean, I don't know. Um, that makes said, I think the chemistry be okay, but will greatly improve during the season. I mean, that's usually how it goes. You know what I mean? But like I said, I go back to this, right? And some people may say whatever they want to say, but man, like the expectations are so high. So Arroyo getting 20 catch, QB, I, it's a lot of competition over there, man. Like from just talent standpoint, because I know a lot of people were very high on Elijah Lofton. People were high on Riley Williams when he came in. Obviously, we were high on Arroyo, for what he was able to do his freshman year playing alongside Will Mallory. We felt like he should have got more involved. But it's gonna be interesting. I mean, if again, uh Glizzy to my head combined, I would be hard pressed to see the entire tight end group amass 30 catches. I'm just being honest. Just an entire group. Arroyo, Williams, Lofton, McCormick, any of those guys. I would be hard pressed to see as a collective them guys having more than 30 catches the entire season. I just can't see it. I can't see it because you have three potential NFL guys and wide receiver. You got three of those guys. You got a NFL level quarterback. So the tight ends are gonna have to take a back seat because again, like I say, it's just one football. It's just one football. You know what I mean? So it's not like a situation where Cam Ward has two footballs at his disposal where, all right, I can throw one pass to the wide receiver and then I'm gonna throw another pass to the tight end on the same play. So we bring some type of fairness to this whole thing. I just don't see it, right? And like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and say it right now. I will not be engaging in any discussion. So if anybody asks me during the season when we do these particular shows about what do you think about the tight end involvement or lack thereof, I'm gonna say, look, it's a trade off. You know what I'm saying? It's a trade off. You either gonna have the receivers doing what they do, or you're gonna have to give it to the tight ends, right? Which is like QB. What was the numbers last year? Had 201. I don't remember. Had 50 plus catch. I think Mellon. But that's the thing, though, QB. See, in a situation like that, we had to have a third option. So I think yes, Will Mallory was the third leading receiver that particular year. But I think if Keyshawn Smith had showed a little bit more ability to catch the football in many instances, I think he probably would have had more catches than Will Mallory. I feel that way. You know what I mean? But I mean, when we just let's just strictly stick into Miami, right? The last first round tight end we had was David Njoku, right? David Njoku was one of the leading receivers on the team that particular year, right? So again, and I think we did a show about this last year sometime when we had like we really went back to a time where it's like when was a time that we had three wide receivers performing at this particular level while also having a tight end chip in? Because in our recent history suggests that our tight end was either the second pass leader, pass catch, reception leader, or they were third. Whether that was Will Mallory, whether that was Brevin Jordan, whether that was Njoku, whether that was Chris Herndon, whether that was Clyde Walford, who again we all agree was messed over out of the Mackey. So going back to then, so we've always had a tight end that was really the second or third option. But last year showed us, and I think this year is just gonna further emphasize that it's like, man, we got a trio of wide receivers, man. Tight ends, y'all gotta take a back seat. Y'all gonna have to come in and y'all gonna have to be traditional tight ends, right? I can't remember. I think it was on. Utah, where one of the college called in and told D and Larry Frank, like, look, bro, the tight end coach we have, he's a former offensive line coach. So obviously, the point of emphasis with him is not so much about um, the new style tight ends. It's like, no, we want to still keep y'all true to what a tight end is. We're not necessarily like we are happy that y'all do have the ability to stretch the field, but we're not looking for that, right? Because we've done this experiment with Will Mallory because it's so hard to find a tight end nowadays that's either you're more offensive lineman in terms of being able to block or you're more of a receiver. They're really not guys that now that are coming out that can do both equally as well at a high enough level. But again, like I said, even if we had a guy like that, it would be hard. It would be hard pressed for me to see him taking catches away from the top three receivers that we do have. So, all in all, I mean that's the way that I look at it. You know what I mean? Um, like I said, it's a good problem to have. You know what I mean? It's a good. I mean, it's a it's a good problem to have. You know what I mean? I know practice is gonna say what practice is going. Practice is what practice is. And even going back to the spring game that we sat there and watched, where the tight ends look to be a little bit more involved, right? But again, when you put that into perspective, if that was a game, we're talking about. I can't remember the tight end that caught the touchdown, but obviously Arroyo got a catch. Um, Riley Williams had a nice catch that I believe it was either Reese Poffenbarger or maybe it was Emery threw a pass going to the right over defender. He caught the ball. But if we're talking about in a game setting, 70 some snaps in a game, the tight ends only accounted for 2 to 3 catches. So you do 2 to 3 catches and multiply that times 12 games, that's 36. And I think, I really think that's what it's going to be. You know what I mean? 30, 36, I'll be hard pressed. You know what I mean? Again, as a collective, because it's not like the running back position where you swap guys out or even the wide receiver position, because one of the things about young tight ends is a lot of them have to learn how to adapt to the physicality. And that was one of the things that really set Brevin Jordan apart. I know Brevin Jordan caught a lot of flack here. I know some people talked about some of the stuff he was doing off the field in terms of partying, but Brevin Jordan really gained my respect his freshman year. He stepped in because I was a skeptic. I'm not gonna lie, because they were like, "Oh, well, Brevin Jordan will start against LSU," and I'm like, "Is Brevin Jordan ready to block against those guys?" And he performed exceptionally well. You know what I mean? So again, so that's kind of what separated him from Will Mallory, where Brevin Jordan was, probably the last example that we had of a guy that I can block just as well as do that. You know what I mean? So um, Max tight ends are going to eat occasionally because our wide receivers and sometimes running back coming out of the backfield are going to attract most of the attention. I mean, my rebuttal to that, IMAX, in theory, that makes a good point, but that's what you want though. You want a one-on-one situation because what we learned last year is that you're not going to be like no one person can guard Xavier Stripper. He's too good at finding. He like his football IQ is through the roof. He's gonna find the opening, especially if you play zone. And if you play man against him out of the slot, he's smart enough to know like, all right, is he playing outside leverage against me in the slot, or is he playing inside leverage, right? So if I got an option, if he's playing outside leverage, all right, I got the option to you know, run a run a slant or run a little small dig route, or if he's playing inside leverage on me, I can give him a fake, I can give him a move right here, I can get back outside, right? And if he's playing me close and he underestimates my speed, which Texas A&M learned last year, I'm gonna run by you. So I mean I just think Xavier Stepo he's so good at getting open to the point that they may actually have to bracket cover him. You know, Now, Sam Brown, depending on how they use him, whether he's going to be a guy that's going to be the guy that runs down the field and attracts the attention, because I heard he's fast, a little bit more sure-handed than the young man that we got from Alabama last year, which that's what I want to hear, because that was my whole gripe last year. It's like y'all are talking about how fast this man is, 4.2 speed and all this stuff like this, but no one is talking about he can consistently catch the football. You know what I'm saying? So at least from Sam Brown's perspective, I'm hearing that he's fast and he also can catch the football. So I have no issues with that. You know what I'm saying? And obviously we know what Jacoby George is going to do. So it's hard for that. But like I said, if anything, I see the running backs being more involved in the passing game than I do, the tight ends. That's just how I look at it. You know what I mean? Things may change. True, I'm going off the upgraded equipment. I mean, yes, IMAX, like I said, I agree with that. Like, Cam Ward probably will perform better than Tyler Van Dyke. And he probably, based on, again, what he played in for 2 years at Washington State, I think he probably doesn't have a problem with taking the check down to the wide receiver. But again, it kind of goes back to my whole thing about what's the difference between a play caller and the difference between a coordinator, right? Because going back to the Louisville game, right? I still remember the announcer saying, "Oh man, Louisville had not used the tight ends this much all season, right?" But what does that tell me? That tells me that Brom and his staff, they go into the game planning it based off um, what the defense is weak at, or what the defense is not good at. Like, okay, they're not good at, because they had enough game film, right? They had enough game film to kind of see some of the weaknesses and what Gidry was doing. So they're like, okay, well, the tight ends are able to get open. So we're gonna devise a plan and we're gonna get the tight ends involved. I don't know if Shannon Dawson is going into a game where it's like, all right, I'm going to attack the defense's weakness. Now, because Shannon Dawson has come out and said, well, I'm gonna take what the defense gives us. Well, if you're gonna say that, and we're saying that, well, they gave you the tight end, you didn't take it. It wasn't a priority. The priority was, y'all can't guard Xavier Restrepo. Y'all are trying to guard him, but y'all can't. Going back to Dabo Sweeney, oh, they want to get the ball at 7, right? So the thought process, and obviously we remember that game. Emory Williams started that game, and we ran the ball, pretty much all the time into the fourth quarter. He made some good throws, but he hasn't shown in it last year. It wasn't a situation where he showed like, I'm really gonna take what the defense is giving me, because if the defense is giving me an entire position group to catch the ball, I'm not doing it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. So, but again, he can grow. Yeah, the defense gave us 8-man coverage, and we still calling plays with sending 2 men out on the route. You know what I mean? So, but I want to kind of forget that. You know what I'm saying? We'll try to forget that. But again, officially, Cuba, no, it's not a fake live. We live. Like, we live. But hopefully, you know what I mean? Dawson and Ward are able to do some things, right? But again, like I said, I still my two biggest things on this team is how well the offensive line is going to do, and what's going on with the secondary, right? I see that from people around practice, it looks like the two starting corners on the outside are going to be Daryl Portis and Jadaeus Richard, and Brown is going to be in the slot. Now, that's some good length, especially in the slot, because Brown is over 6 feet. I think Daryl Porter is 5'10", maybe 5'11", and I think Richard is like 6'1", 6'2". So that's a nice lineup. You know what I mean? So that's some size, um, um, some physicality, because I think Daryl Porter will tackle. Brown, he's shown the propensity to tackle, and I think Jadaeus Richard, just by size alone, he's going to show the ability to be able to tackle. So I kind of I like that lineup. You know what I mean? And obviously I know Gidry's going to switch things around, but like I said, but that's still my concern. You know what I mean? Because I think one of the things that we've kind of gotten lucky with, especially last year, because we kind of look at the quarterbacks that we played last year. Um, Obviously, we played against Sam. Played against not Sam Howell, but I forgot his name. But the quarterback from UNC. When he got some protection, he showed us why he was a first round draft pick quarterback. You know what I mean? So, going into this particular season, Graham Mertz, he probably be solid. K Run Drones, I think, and he even said it on the video when he was working out with Shador and Cam, like, bro, my completion percentage was 50%. No, Sam, yeah, not Sam, yeah, Drake May. Sam Howell was before Drake May, which Sam Howell could throw it around the yard too. You know what I'm saying? So we still remember, you know, giving up 18 yards when we needed to stop. So, but yeah, Drake May shows why he was an NFL quarterback. But I think, and I've said this on a previous video, I think the collection of quarterbacks that we're going to play this particular year are going to be a little bit better. And I had this conversation the other day, and I said I don't think that I didn't think Jordan Travis actually improved as a quarterback in terms of his decision making and what he did. I was more so of the mindset that Mike Norvell and Alex Atkins and their collective staff, they saw what his weaknesses were, and they said, okay, well, we can't correct them. What we can do is mitigate them. And what I mean by that is just get him some bigger receivers. Because I don't think Jordan Travis became a more accurate quarterback. I just think when you're throwing to, and I've said this before, I believe this wholeheartedly. If I'm throwing to, and I said this about Jakari Brown, if I'm throwing to bigger targets, I'm going to look more accurate than I actually am, because it takes a really accurate guy to throw it to what they call the average or a below average height receiver, a guy that's like a Xavier Stripper, a guy that's maybe 6 foot or something like that. That doesn't have like this crazy wingspan, like, because Jordan Travis was literally overthrowing Johnny Wilson. And Johnny Wilson is 6'7", probably catch radius probably 10 feet or something like that. However they measure that, you know what I'm saying? And he still made it, crazy and stuff like that. So, but it's gonna be interesting, Like I said, I think K. Rod Jones is gonna be better. The quarterback from Cal, PFF said he was a pretty good quarterback from a freshman standpoint. So, and then they got a solid run game, so I think that's gonna help him be a little bit better. I think Graham Mertz will be a little bit better. Like I said, I think they went and got him some weapons. So the first game is really gonna tell us a lot because, like I said, we can dog Florida. You know what I mean? But I do think that they do present an interesting matchup, right? They have some receivers. They have a quarterback that, statistically he did well. It wasn't out of this world, you know what I mean? But he did well. So I think, that's going to be the whole thing. You know what I mean? And like I said, our defensive line has to earn the right to rush the passer, which means that we have to stop the run first and foremost, right? And I think Gidger and company didn't know that, right? We didn't, we made a point of emphasis to get those defensive tackles for a reason, because we need to, stop the run so we can have the guys on the outside and even on the inside, make it uncomfortable for the quarterback in the pocket, right? So, um, but yeah, I'm still, like I said, defensive back coverage and offensive line. Those is kind of my two still kind of question marks, because one of the things that I said on the video previously was that one of the things that made Cam Ward special was the fact that he could do a lot of stuff off script. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, are we going to be? Is he still going to be as effective as he needs to be, or we want him to be, if he's not in a position to go off script as much, right? Because sometimes when you take something away, because it's kind of like going back to this past year with Lamar Jackson in the playoff game, and after the game they had that clip wrote, going around of his receiver, like, look, bro, we need you. Like, be you. Whereas Lamar was trying to be, operate out of the pocket, because, even though you a professional athlete, it's hard to block out the noise. You know what I mean? People are saying, oh, well, you're just a running back and they can't win with you running the ball. So some of that stuff gets to you. we've seen it with Michael Vick. We've seen it with um, Robert Griffin III, like guys who are really good off script try to turn into a guy that is on script, right? So I think that's one of the things that's going to be interesting to see whether how well Cam Ward operates on script, because I do think that on offense, full potential will be met if he's on script, not so much off script. Because instances when guys go off script, um, the percentage of holding penalties go up. It go up. The tendency for you to quote unquote walk into a sack, that goes up. Obviously, his the issues that he showed in terms of ball security. Obviously, the ball security percentage drops down. So that's what I'm gonna be so interested. Really interested to see whether or not how well he performs on script. Now, again, like I said, we watched the spring game, and he looked well. There were a couple of instances where he did, have to tuck and run and stuff like that. Which, I mean, regardless of the offensive line, it's always going to be instances. It's always going to be instances like that. You know what I mean? But obviously, for him, when those instances or when those situations, happen, he has to show that he can protect the football. You know what I mean? But all in all, man, I mean, I'm ready for the season to start, man. I mean, I know again, like I said, a lot of people are a lot more excited about this particular year because they feel like we finally have a contender. But again, I'm gonna tread lightly. You know what I mean? I saw South Coast Kane. I think he had a very interesting title to his video. It was like, I have PTSD for the last 20 years, so just leave me alone. And so I'm kind of the same way. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't say I'm not gonna say I have PTSD, but I'm just gonna say like I'm in the show me business, right? And going back to the Rise of the File series, you know, every couple of years or so, there was a team that many people felt like were from a Miami perspective, like they were ready to take that step, and unfortunately, they didn't take that step, right? And one of the things, and this was one of the things I wanted to talk about on this particular video in the past, because I wanted to go live and talk about this way earlier than this. But one of the things that I've realized is that in the last 5 to 6 years, right? I'll say it's in the last 5 to 6 years, because one of the things that we were talking about is like it seems like the media is it's like more media attention on Miami this year and stuff like that. And I kind of racked my brain on it, and then it hit me. It's like, well, yeah, it is more media attention because there are more people that are hitching their wagon to talk about college football. And so one of the things that, at least from what I've heard, at least from a media standpoint, is like you have to talk about things that grabs people's attention, right? So saying that Miami is back, that's going to get people from different fan bases, Ohio State fan base, Notre Dame fan base, Florida State, Florida, now Oklahoma State. It's going to get those people from those particular fan base. They're going to start chiming in. So your views are going to go up, right? It's kind of like I was hearing about they were talking about like undisputed, right? And like one of the things that they were talking about on that particular show was like it was a point of emphasis that you have to talk about the Cowboys. You have to talk about the Lakers because the Lakers were tied up with LeBron James. So you have to talk about those two things because not only are you going to get their fans to watch, you're also going to get the people that don't like them to chime in and watch it. Now, the negative to that is the fact that you're missing out on a crap ton of other teams that should deserve that spotlight. But at the end of the day, the numbers are the numbers. Like people are tuning into this. So the reason I say that is like, Josh Pate, JD Pickle, like not AJ McCameron, Greg McElroy, Robert Griffin III, guys like that. These guys are, and others, right? Guys that are on smaller scales, like even myself, right? And people that have recently started YouTube channels and stuff like that that talk about sports. like that number has increased so much within the last 5 or so years. So if we go back 5 years, 5 years ago was 2019, right? So what was there to be said about the Miami Hurricanes in 2019? Right now, obviously coming, especially after coming out the 2018 season, it wasn't much to be said about that. Like, okay, Mark Rick is gone. We just hired our defensive coordinator as the head coach. After he left and took a job at Temple, and then we paid a buyout, and he's coming back. So there's nothing to talk about in terms of that, right? But Mario Cristobal's here, NIL is here. John Ruiz was very active on on Twitter. Obviously, he, as they say, he doesn't have very much of anything to do with NIL in terms of Miami right now. And that's still a story, right? He came out and told his shareholders that he feels like, hey, look, the company's not as profitable as we planned it to be. So, it might end up just going out of business. But that's a story. People are running with it. They're still referring to John Ruiz as the Miami NIL king because of the presence that he had on social media. Now, again, mind you, that he didn't have that presence 2019 because NIL in the current form that wasn't anything, right? He couldn't, like, maybe let's say for instance maybe he could have maybe been assisting in recruiting back in 2019. You can go on Twitter and brag about it. But in 2021, 2022, 2023, to a lesser extent, you could go on Twitter. You could brag about it. You could go back and forth with people about it. So, if anything, I just see the media presence around Miami not just being because they want to talk about Miami. I think it's more so the fact that we know Miami gets clicks. We know that we're in a day and time where it's not so much about being accurate. It's more so about being first to do it, right? And like QB say, yeah, you get free gear. Yeah, you get some free gear. You get more access because prior to Mario Cristobal getting here, I don't recall a outside reporter um, having access to come in and sit down and do an interview with the head coach. Because for the longest point, I can't remember the guy's name. Nice guy, wasn't going to ask any tough questions. I forgot what his name was, but he worked for Miami. I can't remember what his name was, but we remember him always sitting down doing interviews. Not It wasn't one of the people from the paper, but he was like an official Miami staff. I cannot remember what his name was, but he would do all the offseason interviews. But now you got Josh Pate coming in. Pate State is a big brand. People feel like, oh, he's the next big big name in covering sports media, and most people feel like in many instances, when Kirk Herbstreit steps away and stuff like that, more or less he's probably in line for a position like that. You know what I mean? So that's what I look at it as. I don't I look at it more so as that it's more media outlets now that are covering college football, and it just so happens that Miami, due to the fact of the NIL, the increasing recruiting, the presence of Miami fans on social media sites and stuff like that, and the other fan bases that what I mean, interact with Miami and say, "Oh man, old rings and 20 some odd years ago." It's like that's compelling commentary to some people, right? So it's like, okay, well, yeah, you know what I mean. So like nothing, nothing warranted those pundits on that show to say, "Oh, Miami can run the table this year. Miami can go undefeated." Like nothing warranted them saying that, right? Other than the fact that we know that this is gonna get shared, and not saying they don't believe it, because I don't want to come off as saying that they're being completely disingenuous. But at the end of the day, I do think it is some merit to the fact that I'm going to talk about things that I know is going to gain traction, because they could have very well came out and said, well, man, maybe SMU could go undefeated this year. That's not going to gain any traction like that. But you say Miami's going to go there, or we're going to share it. People are going to quote it from a Twitter perspective, right? Shout out to Studio One because he said I spent all my life on Twitter, which is it's kind of true. do spend a lot of time on Twitter now. Uh, but that's just what it's gonna be. You know what I mean? But the thing about it is, though, you know what I mean. The same hands and the same people that pat you on the back and say you're doing a good job, they will turn around and be the same ones that are going to, talk about you, right? So like they're our friends now, in terms of the exposure that they're giving, but they will also turn around and say stuff because I always go back to, like I said, I have nothing against Josh Pate, but I always go back to the aspect of like year one when things were so rocky, the first couple of weeks with the offense, and Josh Pate just comes out and says, "Well, man, I received some emails from some former coaches before the season talking about Josh Gaddis, and now it looks like those things are coming to fruition." And it's like that echoed with me. I never forgot that because what it tells me is like you're basically saying that I have information or I had information, right? Don't necessarily know if he's still getting that same information now. But you're basically saying that if things are not going good for Miami, I may like Mario Cristobal, which I think he does, then I got some information over here that can essentially take him off the hook by saying that, hey, well, look, this guy, it wasn't what it was. You know what I mean? Like I got some intel about him before the season even started that this wasn't going to work out, right? So who's to say that if things don't work out this year that you don't have more intel? Because I mean that was like early in the season. That was like week 3 or 4. Like when he said that, it's like bro, like you could have kept that to yourself. You know what I mean? So I mean, like I say, I mean it is what it is. But I just want to kind of I want to ask this question though because obviously the general consensus is okay. This year is no excuses, right? But what does that? I mean, but what does that really mean, right? Because let's just say if we only win 8 games this year, right? What does that mean? Does it mean like it's not going to mean that Mario Cristobal is going to get fired? Like I mean, like what are like the real ramifications of it? Because usually when you say no excuses, and again I'm guilty of saying it as well, but after I had some time to think about it, it's like, but like what is going to happen? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, what is going to happen in the grand scheme of things? Like, if we go 8-4 this year, what's going to happen? I don't. I mean, I don't think anything of substance is going to happen. I don't think recruiting is going to drop um, tremendously because again, we've gone through the rise of the fall series and just looking at stuff that's available to you on media. Um, NIL is still going to be there, so we could probably still pull in a top 10 class, top 15 or something, top 12 at the worst, at the absolute worst. Um, you still get people that want to come and get paid. So, I mean, like, what would actually occur? You know what I mean? I mean, because you can say no excuses now, but we all know that you can still find an excuse, right? Because first year 5-7, right? Was the offensive line. Look at all the injuries we had. Even though Manny Diaz had a crap ton of injuries, his final year he got fired. Nobody wants to talk about that, right? So then we go to 2000. We go to last year. Oh, well, TVD lost us all these games. So those are back to back. So what I'm saying is, it's like there could be something that legitimately occurs. Like there could be someone, as Coach Hayes says, breaks a shoelace, or there could be a situation where a side of the ball may not be performing the way that it should perform, and that's a built-in excuse right there. So they can turn around. So it's kind of like, to me, you really can't say no excuses because things that are out of your control happen. And when things out of your control happen, it actually gives you an excuse to make, especially if the goal or the aspiration that you set out, or the goal, the goal that you set out to hit or to obtain, if it doesn't happen, you can go back and say, oh, well, it's because of that. So to me, I'm just gonna stop saying no excuses, because there can always be an excuse, regardless of how we really feel about it. Because again, we don't know what can happen, right? We've had some unfortunate things to happen. Like I said, from 2021 to 2022, we had a rash of shoelace breakages that they just came at bad times, right? Last year, we had a situation with a quarterback after the bye week. We don't know what the heck happened to him. Again, we can attribute some of that to, you know, when you go back and look at it, it's like, I mean, the guy really didn't have many options in terms of throwing the football down the field, because it's three guys running against eight defenders. You know what I mean? But it's an excuse. You know what I mean? So, I mean, like I say, I mean, what does no excuses really mean when you can realistically make an excuse? Like, one of the things that we can go back to in the Rise of the Fall series is every single year we could point to one thing or a multitude of things to say, well, man, if that had been better, we would have been better. So there's always an excuse available. You know what I mean? It just depends on, it just depends on whether or not you want to apply that excuse to what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like this upcoming year, there could be an excuse like Cuban Kane said, like, chemistry. Okay, that could be an excuse like, oh well, man, they tried to put this whole thing together in one year, it just didn't work out. It's usually the second year together where things kind of really gel together. Well, that's an excuse. You can bring that up. Um, Again, like I say, I'm concerned about the offensive line, the defensive backs. Maybe they don't perform up to par. That's an excuse. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I don't see a situation. And then another thing is, if you lose a game, it's kind of like, well, they didn't beat us, we beat ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So that's another excuse. So I, I I'm just, as of today, I'm not adopting the no excuses. Like, oh well, 10-2, no excuses. 11-1, no excuses. Or ACC title, or no excuses, or bust, or whatever. It's like, I can say that, but in reality, there will always be an excuse. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's like going back to the 2019 or the 2018 Florida game. No, 2019 Florida game, right? I keep getting 2018 and 2019 mixed up for whatever reason. I can go back to 2019 and I can say, well, I didn't say this, but people will go back and say, well, man, Jeff Thomas muffed that punt and then he dropped that touchdown. That's why we lost the game. That's an excuse. You know what I'm saying? So, people can always do that.
What up, Chad? I'm just in the background.
Oh my God. Hold up. Let's see something. Dang. I'm up here trying to.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a bit thinking my headset was on, and I was on my iPhone microphone. You can still hear me pretty good.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I know sometimes when I talk to people on this headset, they say I come in, I'm kind of low. But anyway, what's up?
No, it's game time now. No more this off season talk is over, right? So I'm really, I know everybody's hyping up this game one, but I am scared shitless because of the chemistry issue.
Because of the oh yeah, I mean like I said, I mean that can be an excuse.
You could have all the time in the world, but I've seen a game at UF. It ain't. It's not. It's not. It's not for the faint of heart. You know what I'm saying? And I keep seeing people say, "Oh, this guy came from, he was a beast at school X, school B," and I'm like, "Yeah." When these transfers come to Miami, they're not like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a whole different beast when you put that U on your helmet. So all the off season hype, all the it's over with now. Now it's game week next week. You know what I'm saying? So
Most
you have to
definitely.
talk.
Well, people are still gonna talk though. I mean, you know that. You know that. I
Well,
know that.
it's yeah. I know the thing that just disappoints me. It's I see people on Twitter talking about Ward is better than King, and I'm like, man, that ain't
That's the debate that can go on forever because I mean the same type of mindset where it's like, okay, well, Cam had to play hero ball at Washington State. Well, it's like how much better was Houston's offensive line than Washington State? Because I don't think you account for 50 touchdowns. And you're not playing at least some level of hero ball. And I don't, I
right.
don't, I don't, I don't think it works, especially from a guy that's a dual threat. Like you had 20 rushing touchdowns along with 30 passing. So obviously, some of those rushing touchdowns were due to the fact that you were playing a little hero ball, and I don't think that team, that King team, what I think they may have went 8-4 that year or something like that. So it's not like they were in contention to be one of those dark horse G5 teams at that time. You know what I mean? So
Right. And I see everybody, I think Bane is a beast, but I keep telling everybody when LT quit on the team, they triple team Bane, right? So it's like if somebody in that line does not step up, it's gonna be a rough year for Bane. No matter how good he is, it's like somebody needs to step up on that line, or else Bane is gonna have a rough year. And I'm not
well,
trying to be negative, but it's just like it's gonna get real with them.
like I said, I mean they got to earn the right to rush the passer. So usually this old adage is when you have a pass rusher on the field, you run the ball at him until he proves that he can stop the run. So, I mean, that's going to be first and foremost. Where we were, we've done well in terms of at least on paper beefing up the middle of the defensive line, but we still have to make sure that the edges are secure. Like I know Akeem Mesidor, he did well in there, but again, we're talking about a guy that hasn't played a full season in a while. He hasn't played a full season at Miami in terms of that. So whatever injuries that he's or foot that he's dealing with, I mean, is he just gonna be able to just walk back into that and just be what he was? Because I mean, sometimes when a guy does have a lingering injury, it does slow them down a little bit. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and and just chemistry wise, right? Like I know I keep bringing it up, but
but
a
you're
lot
right.
of you paid a lot of these dudes to come over here, and they're not gonna get that much playing time, right? And it's like, all right, what we're gonna
Well,
do now, you
well,
know?
I mean, they did bring up the aspect they're gonna do a lot of rotating. You know what I mean? So at least from a defensive tackle standpoint, the too deep on that, all those guys are gonna be transfers. And then maybe Moulton and maybe um Justin Scott, maybe they can work their way on the field. Mondo Moulton, Mondo Blunt, guys like that. But I mean, more or less, it is what it is. QB say, so all our good D Lehman. I mean, QB, if you listen to it, like no one is talking about the defensive tackles. Like when we picked up CJ Clark, like there was a little hype around him, like, oh man, he was like NC State's best defensive lineman. But that kind of died down quickly because people were enamored with, oh, well, look at the pressures that Tyler Barron got and look at, what Bain did. So, I mean, just general consensus, it does make it seem like all our good defensive linemen are defensive ends from a pass rushing standpoint. You know what I mean? But like I said, they're going to have to earn the right to rush the passer. That's all it is. Do I think Sam Brown is starting? I mean, all indications seem that way. I mean, but we said this. We've talked about this. It's like, bro, you didn't transfer here to be on the bench. I mean, I saw a compilation from a guy on Twitter that had kind of put together some things. He looked good, and he went back and said Sam Brown looks like the best receiver on the entire team. I haven't heard anyone say anything about Isaiah Horton. I haven't heard anything about Isaiah Horton.
Chad, how many times we hear that every year? Every time we get a player, they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. When they transfer, they're trash.
I,
You know what I'm saying? It's like,
but I'm just saying this is what I'm saying though. Like this guy didn't like they can put all this out here to say, oh well, everyone earns a spot. It's like you're not like no one like no transfer is coming to another team to sit up here and say I'm gonna earn it. I earned it. The reason I earned to start here is because you sought me out. You felt like I did a good enough job in my previous location that you feel like I want to invest some resources in you, and you feel like the person that you already have there is not up for the job. They didn't go out and like think about this for instance, right? Um, Josh Kelly was Cam Ward's number one go-to target at Washington State. He's a slot receiver. But they didn't go out there and devote resources to Josh Kelly and say, oh well, he has chemistry. Let him come in and compete with Xavier Restrepo. That wasn't the thought process. They didn't go out there and say, oh, we're gonna get a receiver to come in and compete with Jacoby George. That wasn't the thought process. The thought process was we're gonna get a guy to come in and compete with Isaiah Horton, but it's really not a competition because look at what he did. Like, depending on whether you believe these recruiting sites and stuff, oh, he's the number one portal wide receiver. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I mean, I'm just interested to see how this goes down because one thing that we all know is all good when you're winning, but like we've talked about, and you've been more adamant about it than I have. The aspect of you bring these guys in, and the young guys are not getting as much playing time, but the guys you brought in maybe not performed at the level you thought. What do you say to them? What do you say to them to keep them engaged and for them not to jump in the portal before the season is even over?
yeah. I mean, you got, there's going to be a tricky situation, you know? I mean, I don't know who's been in the locker room, but if you lose against Florida, that locker room is going to get a little bit sour. You know, it's like I'm
Of
better than
course it
that dude.
is.
Why is he playing in it? Why is he playing before me? You know what I'm saying? And it's just like this is why I am so against bringing in all these portal players because it's a tricky situation. All these guys are just
But
they're
again,
just hitters. They're not supposed to. They're not loyal to the program.
you're the mercenaries.
Yeah, they're mercenaries. Yeah.
I always go back to the Keon Coleman commitment video. I'm going to Florida State for the next 9 months.
Damn.
So so I mean I mean that's what he said. You know what I mean? So I mean that's what these guys are saying. And then we got the again like depending on which side of the fence you're on, um, the Barrow situation with um he's left the team. I think Arkansas or LSU somebody's a player here. You know what I mean?
Right.
And somebody was like, oh well, no, it was his dad still kind of shopping around. So I'm like, okay, let's say his dad is still shopping around. Well, how invested are you into Miami? Now, obviously, again, we got to see how the culture is, but that's going to be the first thing that occurs. If you don't go out here and play that well, it's not going to be the fans that's talking about, oh, well, bro, you literally was up here holding us up for more money, and then you out here playing like this. No, you got to go to the face with the guys in the locker room. It's like, bro, so you, whether it was your pops or whether it was you out here playing these type of games, and then you on the field and you playing like that. It's going to test whether or not this whole culture changing has actually changed. Because at the end of the day, it should be a situation where if you do that in the first game of the season, you're not playing like you're supposed to play, you ain't, your rep should go down immediately.
Immediately. I agree.
So I say like as far as the culture changing and all that stuff like that, bro, You cannot say a culture has changed when a game has not even been played. Like that doesn't work. It doesn't work like that.
I mean,
It doesn't work that
this
way.
is gonna be a very interesting season, and all the energy everybody had this off season. I'm like, just keep that same energy. Don't switch it up.
But Cuban are not going to keep the same energy. And that's what I was saying before I brought you on here. It's like, okay, you say no excuses, but what does that mean? Because you can literally find an excuse. Like, we literally watched South Coast Kane do Rise of the Fall, and you were, you and I, we hopped on every now and again. Well, you were on more than I was, but we literally, at the conclusion of each one of those seasons, we all could go back and say, well, man, if that was different, the end result would have been different. Like, there's literally an excuse we can make for every single season that we've had up until this particular year. So I'm trying to figure out, how would this year be any different in terms of finding a scapegoat to put the blame on, whether it's a single player like it was with Tyler Van Dyke, or whether it was a rash of injuries like it was in 2022. So it's like,
So let me ask you a
there will
question. What
always
could
be an
be?
excuse.
So let me ask you a question. What could be the potential excuse this year?
Well, I'll bring it up. We lost Matt Lee. We lost Javion Cohen. So at the left guard position, we're going to be starting a player that doesn't have as many reps under his belt. That could be that's one. And Zach Carpenter, you're not as good as Matt Lee. Then from a defensive back standpoint, which I still feel like that's is going to be something, especially if the defensive line is not able to get off like we think they're getting off, because we still got to address the issues in the middle of the field, because that was like, it just seems like we cannot find a defensive coordinator, or we can find a skill set of players at the linebacker position that can make the middle of the field hard for quarterbacks to complete passes. Because I attribute a lot of the things last year, just the quarterback and maybe the receiver that was getting the ball, like, they weren't as good as they needed to be. But I think we're going up against something different this year. So those are my two things. Like, we can point at the wide receivers, and we can not the wide receiver, we can point at the offensive line, at the left guard and the center position, and we can point at the secondary, right?
Right.
So then, like I said, even if and again, let's say for instance, again, so what does the offensive line not being as well as we think, what does that do for Cam Ward? Now Cam Ward has to go out there and play a little bit more hero ball. So then it's like, oh well, man, if they protected Cam Ward a little bit better, maybe we wouldn't have these turnovers. So, like I said, like, there is no way that you can have a perfect, like, the odds of that are less than 1%, less than 0.5%, that everything is going to be perfect. It's
No,
gonna be it's
I
gonna
get that.
be
I
it's
understand
gonna
that.
be excuses.
I get that. I understand that. My thing is like, Mario, you went all in. Was it
Because
worth it?
he went in all year too. And QB, you make up a good point. No excuses means someone get fired. But then QB, we have to think about this. Like, this would, so in 3 years, let's say for instance, because if people get fired, they're coordinators. In 3 years, um, we would have three different offensive coordinators or three different defensive coordinators if someone gets fired. So the question then becomes, then it goes back to, then we started talking about it like Randy Shannon. It's like, you never could find a coordinator to get the job done. You know what I'm saying? So, and these people have to be bought out. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're going to pay people that are not working here anymore, not just one time, but this will be the third, excuse me, this will be the third time we'll be doing this. Now, obviously, the buyout goes down if they get another job, but, it's kind of still the same thing. But
I don't agree with firing Mario. Anything. I now.
but he's
I would respect him if he has a bad season, and if he does a boss move like firing his homeboy, like Mario, he deserves another 3 to 4 years for that. But you
hey
know,
man, I don't know, man. But like I said, I just I don't like I said, I don't see a world where and then you say like hot seat because the whole thing would be, well, he can't be on the hot seat. He got a 10-year contract. And it's like, well, a 10-year contract, I mean, that sounds good, but really it's really a 5-year contract. It's really what it is.
I don't think so. I think this is more of an 8-year contract.
I say 5. I still say 5
I
because,
don't think he's nowhere near getting fired.
but that's what I'm
I
saying.
think we could win one game this year, right? And he's not even close to getting fired.
But think about this for a second. Think about this for a second. Do you think if, just say for instance, we lose to Florida State again? I mean, like, think about how, see, this is how we know, like, when people talk about these great rivalries and stuff like this, like Michigan and Ohio State and Bama, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, which, all that, like the Miami Florida State rivalry is up there. But if you look at the optics of it all, Michigan lost to Ohio State I think 14 years in a row before they
Yep.
finally won on the hardball. And there was still ramifications behind it. Michigan coaches got fired behind it. No Miami coach has gotten fired because they lost to Jimbo Fisher. Like as of recently. Like that's like that to me right now is what's separating those other rivalries from what our rivalry used to be. Because it meant something. I don't think like Mario could be like I mean, obviously I feel like we should beat Florida State this year. But Mario could go into losing to Mike Norvell again for 3 years, and no one's gonna bring up like how they're doing right now with Ryan Day. Ryan Day is a very successful coach, but the talking point is if you don't beat Michigan this year, your job is on the line. Like Mario Cristobal's job would never be on the line because he lost to Florida State,
That's a
and
question
no
to you. What
and no coach dating back to probably Butch Davis has that standard been there where winning the Florida State game actually either increased your job security or lowered your job security. We're
I
not
have a
like
question. What do you think? No, what would make you say, "All right, his job is on the line now"? What needs to happen this year to say for you to say his job is on the line?
I don't think his job is going to be on the line.
I know I'm saying, but
But
what
me,
would it look like to say that his job is on the line?
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not even gonna BS you. I don't have an answer.
All
I
right,
don't.
that's cool.
I mean, simply because of how much was invested to get him here, how much has been invested to accommodate him here. Um, there's nothing that I can think about right now that could occur that would have his job on the line because I think he's such a good communicator, not just to the recruits, but even to the people that are in higher situations that he could BS his way out of anything.
Facts.
I mean, the only thing would have to be something off the field, like you have some type of something that in the contract where it's like you're not supposed to do this, but you're engaging in it anyway. Something like a lack of like a Mel Tucker type of thing, right? Like you got something like that going on. Like, but other than that, I don't see anything that would put his uh his job on the line. I mean, I really don't because you just it's y'all have invested so much into him. I just don't see it. I don't think it was more so. I don't really. I think people want to. I think people are excited to see Miami winning, and I think people are. The people that are bankrolling this whole thing. Obviously those some of those people were involved in getting Messi to Miami. To play soccer for Miami. So how they say, rich people, sometimes they get in the spirit like, hey, I got some extra money. Here, F it. I'll give you some extra money. You know what I'm saying? But I don't see anything, right? Like I said, I
No, I
don't
don't see
see.
anything either. I'm just, it's just got to put it out there, right? Like, what could potentially happen with them?
like I said, man, because again you got because again, like I said, just say a couple of shoelaces get broken. You can easily say that. It's like, oh well, yeah, some shoelaces get broken. So then you can
Right.
say, well, maybe I could let go of my strength and conditioning staff, and the next staff will need about 3 years to implement, what they're trying to do. So I mean, like you could like he literally could BS his way into the whole 10 years of the deal without actually putting anything on field that resembles a return on an investment.
Right.
So, but I mean, it's gonna be interesting, man. I think the first game, like you say, the chemistry thing is gonna be interesting to see how the the defense looks, how well the offense is going to look because at the end of the day, um, Florida got to go out there and play with some pride, man. Because it's like I don't know how they feel about Billy Napier. I don't know if they are still in the mindset of we're gonna run through a brick wall for this guy or what the situation is. So I mean, like it's really a wild card right now. You know what I mean? To where they look like they have a solid team. It's not an Urban Meyer type of team. It's not a Jim McElwain type of team, or even a Dan Mullen type of Florida team. It's kind of below that, but I mean, they have a little pride. You know what I mean?
I don't think they're good at all. I just think, hey, we're playing in the swamp, and we got to win this game type of situation.
I mean, I like I said, I mean, they very well may not be, they very well may not be good. You know what I mean? Like I said, I mean, the only thing that I've pretty much seen about them is publications, and some people have stated that they should have a pretty decent offensive line. They went out and got a couple of extra weapons. Um, Defensive coordinator he has another year under his belt to kind of implement what it is he's trying to do. Because obviously this is he's going into his third year there or second year, however that goes. Um, Switched out the defensive back coach. So I mean, I don't know. But again, it very well could be a situation we go out there and treat them like Texas A&M. So I
Another,
mean,
do you think this is an easy schedule?
we've had that discussion. Initially when we saw the schedule, we said, okay, this is easy. But then I said, oh, wait a minute now. The transfer portal is here, and coaches who actually are X's and O's guys, they are now getting players that actually have some talent. So they don't have to work so hard in developing guys. They got ready made players. So like I said, looking back at the schedule again, I no, I don't think the schedule is as easy as we thought it was when it was first announced. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think it's an easy schedule. This is a very tricky schedule. Um,
Yeah, it's very tricky because again, like I said, we're looking at as most Miami fans, probably 95% of us, we're looking at it from the standpoint of the name. Like we see Virginia Tech, okay, well Frank Beamer's not there. Oh, UCF, oh man, they're G5. Cal, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? So most people are probably looking at it like, okay, the only games we got to worry about are Louisville and Florida State, and that's that's just not. That's just not what it is. I mean, we get a breakout to Florida, but then it's immediately we got to get back to USF. Like
who
they're
we played with? Ball State. Who was it we played after Florida?
no, we got fam at the Florida,
Fam.
and then we
All right,
got
I'm
you.
I'm gonna tell you a little secret about Fam. You do know they won the national championship in
Yeah, I do. Like,
HSBC, right? So that's not everybody keeps saying that's gonna be just. I'm like, all right,
but their strategy is, especially with the portal, they've been able to get a lot of what they call the P5 rejects. You know what I mean?
yeah, we're
So
gonna win that game, but they're gonna hit us in the mouth. We're gonna that's gonna be a game where people are gonna get hurt a lot.
I'm gonna tell you this though, and this the interesting thing about it, right? Because I'm glad you brought that up because I do think there is something interesting there that needs to be talked about. Depending on the physicality of the Florida game,
Yep.
I think that is going to be. I think it is going to be interesting because if the Florida game is as physical as we think it's going to be, the first thing that you're going to want to do against fam is you're going to want to try to get those guys some rest that particular week. You want to treat it like a preseason game. Like, okay, we're gonna run the starters out there for a couple of drives, and then we're gonna want to put the backups in. But if the game is still within the possession going into halftime or something like that, it's like you can't roll with that plan. So you immediately go from trying to preserve guys, and we may very obviously we may very well may pull away in the second half, but then you're gonna be but then it's time to go right to USF and
Just a quick thing for the
USF.
people that think that I'm trolling. I hope you watched FAMU versus UNC last year.
Yeah, but you know that's
FAMU
yeah, but we're
FAMU
not
gave UNC hell,
yeah.
and
So
UNC had a first round draft pick quarterback. So
yeah, yeah. But you know
uh,
that say that the offensive line and stuff. But I mean, yeah, like I say, when you really look at it, and I'm glad you brought that up about fam because, like I said, it does present an interesting dynamic. Whereas last year, we didn't have the big first game of the season, so it's kind of like you could kind of gradually you know, get the guy. I mean, the first game, and obviously Texas A&M came, after that, but you had a little time to kind of, all right, we're gonna kind of do what we need to do, get some guys some extra reps. But it's like you start with Florida, and then like you say, Fam is probably the best HBCU. Like they won a national title. And then you go to USF, who's still on the high from taking Bama to the brink, and they got Bama again this year. So Alex Golish, that particular offense that they run and stuff like that. And then you go straight to, then you leave there, and then you got to go 2,000 miles across the country to go play Cal.
yeah,
So I mean, it's so from a mental standpoint and all this stuff, like this is an interesting way to start the season before we get a bye week. You got a physical game. Now, again, the first three games are in state. So you do have that going for you. You don't have to leave the state of Florida. You go up to Gainesville. Second game, they coming down to Miami. And then what? We're going to USF, right?
we're going to USC this year.
Okay, so yeah, so you don't have to leave. And then after that game, boom, we gotta get on a plane. We gotta go 2,000 miles across the country. So I mean, so when you put out that, if we are able to be 4-0 after that, that to me shows that okay, the culture has changed because you have an adverse situation, game one, right? Then you have the wherewithal to go ahead and put your foot down on a film. Then you go to a USF and say, look, hey, we not Alabama. We're gonna put the smack down on you, and then we go out there 2,000 miles. We're not worried about no jet lag. We're not worried about um, time zones or nothing. We out here to handle business, and because it's time to get back to the crib and rest up. So I think that would really say a lot about where the team is if we go through that unscathed. And when I mean unscathed, I mean undefeated, and everyone is still all the people that we depend on they still gonna be ready to go. But if we're talking about guys after the Florida game and the fam game and then going USF, and then we're talking about guys are a little banged up and all this stuff like this. It's like, nah, we don't need to hear that the first three games of the season. Obviously things are gonna happen, but I don't think we really, to be honest with you, and I say this and it may sound crazy, but I don't really think we have as much depth as we think we have.
I agree with you. I
I
completely agree with you.
I think we have because depth to me means that obviously the guy that comes in behind you, there's no drop off. But we're talking about a lot of guys from a depth perspective, especially at the receiver position. We're talking about a lot of guys depth wise who have not played a single solitary game of collegiate football.
Right. And
So I don't consider that depth until you actually show me that you can do it.
And then there's the inverse. Another thing that scares me is this is the South Coast issue that I have as well, the PTSD syndrome. If we do win at Florida, we have a history of like, all right, we're the shit, we're good, and then the next game we get blown out, we get beat.
Or like I
That's the
said, if
opposite side.
oh yeah, or like you say, because we got family next week. Like the game is close going into the fourth quarter.
Right, exactly. So it's like
You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
scared
So
if we win and I'm scared if we lose at the same time, right? It's like it's a very tricky situation there.
yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be interesting because, like I said, this schedule is tricky. And then, like I said, you made mention a bunch, not just over here with me, but you made it on other places too, where it's like, hey, look, next year's schedule is not gonna be a cakewalk. You know what I mean?
Nope.
So you got the balance and act of I got to go all in this year, but I also got to make sure I get some younger guys some valuable reps. So we're not going out there with a bunch of green guys out there next year trying to replicate a great year following this particular year. So I mean, like I said, yeah, this schedule is tricky. You know what I mean? When you look at it, like I said again, if there was no transfer portal, I'd be like, all right, fine, everything is cool. But some of these guys, they went and got people from the portal. They went and got guys that were at the G5 level that were good. They are, they're ready to contribute at this particular level. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. And another thing, like, most people are, have us penciled in to, represent the ACC in the playoff, but there's a contingency of people that's like, all right, don't sleep on NC State. Don't sleep on NC State. Don't sleep on SMU.
Don't sleep on SMU. Yeah.
Don't sleep on Clemson. Because they look like they've dealt with some injuries, and this would be the second year under Browse, and not Browse, but under Garrett over there. So I mean, it's interesting, but like I said, we're so consumed with our team to the point that we're not looking at it. And they're Canes fans, and there's a and I respect them to the fullest. Nassau Kane, his whole thing is, bro, I don't care about what no other team is doing, and there's a lot of Miami fans that are like that, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but sometimes when you do look at things like that or you observe things like that, what you end up missing out on is the aspect that, well, maybe if I was looking over this other team over here, maybe it would come as much of a shock that they played us that tough, or they may have pulled off a victory. You know what I mean? Because it's
Just
like, yeah, they got some guys over there. You know what I mean?
can't believe I'm going to say this, but I need Clemson to do good this year because
Oh
I
yeah,
don't like
because
this portal
because
stuff.
you're standing on something, and that's good. And again, I'm gonna tell you what's gonna be interesting: that Florida State versus Georgia Tech game, because I think Georgia Tech is gonna be a little bit better this year. So I mean, vested interest. You know, if it's up
Yeah.
to us, we hope that both teams lose,
Right.
right? But if Georgia Tech beats Florida State, what does that say about Florida State? Does it say Florida State is good, or does it say Georgia Tech is good? Or if Florida State does beat Georgia Tech, does that say Florida State is good and Georgia Tech is bad? So that's gonna be an interesting game to watch. Because I think Georgia
Sweet.
Tech, yeah, because I think Georgia Tech is gonna be a little bit better this year. I think Haynes King in his second year, I think he'll probably be a little bit better. They have some weapons over there, defense, offense. So I mean, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, it's the first game of the season, so obviously they play before we play. So if Florida State loses, you know, you know how we're gonna do on Twitter. We're gonna clown them, and then if they win, it's gonna be like, well, y'all didn't play nobody but Georgia Tech, and then they rebuttal gonna be, well, they beat y'all. So it's kind of like we need. It's kind of like we need Florida State to we need Georgia Tech to win to kind of validate that, like, all right, Georgia Tech, losing to Georgia Tech ain't so bad, even though it's on some BS. You know what I'm saying? But it kind of shows like, all right, the Mike Norvell train is over. But if they beat Georgia Tech, which I think again, Georgia Tech is gonna be a solid team this year. I mean, yeah, that game gonna be interesting this year. But like I said,
Yeah.
I already did, I already did the show about the teams that, you know, I'm concerned about. But yeah, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Florida State, and Louisville. I mean, yeah, that's a conference schedule that we have to get through.
I agree. Yeah, it's just. I mean, it's gonna be an interesting, fun year. Um, I just hope we do the damn thing. That's all I'm saying. I just hope we do the damn thing.
Well, like I said, but Cuba, this is the thing about it. We're not supposed to be in the hope stage anymore, right? Because when we say we hope, we're still kind of in the PTSD of it all. We're supposed to be like, we know we're gonna do it, but like I say, we're gonna be a little bit more conservative, a little bit more revered in our thoughts about this. But I mean, yes, it's interesting because, like I said, this schedule is not. It's set up interesting, right? Because, like I say, we get spoiled with 3 games in the state of Florida, and then you immediately have to go across the country. to
Yeah.
me to me it would kind of be more interesting, like, and I know this is completely hypothetical because they're in a different conference now, but to me it'd be like, you start the year off with Florida, right? Then game 2, let's say, all right, you go to fam comes to Miami. Second game we go up to, like, let's say, play someone like Cincinnati or something, right?
Right.
Then you come back, USF comes to Miami, and then you go out to Cal. To me, I think that's a little bit better because now the guys kind of know what it's like to be on the plane. Because again, we got to take into consideration, with the exception of maybe a handful of guys, none of these guys have flown that far.
I know. I know. I mean, for me, it's more of a. I keep going to it. It's just the chemistry part, right? It's like, do I like this dude on my team, right? I can't stand this dude. Cam ain't passing. Cam ain't passing me the ball. I'm not getting enough touches, right? I'm better. I'm. There's another one, bro. Y'all paid me 300,000 to get here, and y'all letting this dude and play in front of me. Like, what we
But
doing
there's
here?
but then that's the other thing too, right? That's where it should enough get messy because it's like, you asked me for this money to pay this player. I need this player to play.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't need, and again, in many instances, we may have paid over market value to get him in. I don't want to hear nothing about. I don't care about what you said in practice. I need for him to get in the game, and I need to see with my own 2 eyes that he's not what we say he is. Because then another discussion gets brought up. Because then it's like, well, when you ask me for some money again for another player, I got to kind of look at you with the side eye because it's like, well, what about old buddy? You asked me for all this, DP, what's up? You asked me to, break some bread over here for him, and it didn't look like it was supposed to look. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. But like I said, I'm gonna watch Cal. You know, and so I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch a bunch of teams this year. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna watch a bunch of teams this year because, like I said, I'm especially gonna watch Cal because I want to see how it is because, again, Jaden Ott is gonna be projected to be one of the top running backs in the country. So it, the Florida game is gonna let me know a lot because if they get any semblance of over 100, 115, 120, then I'm like, what the hell Jay not gonna do then? Because we're gonna be fresh out the plane.
Yeah.
So like I said, I mean, it's gonna be so important for us to come out of those 3 games as healthy as possible because that's the last thing that you need is a team that's kind of banged up a little bit going over to play a team that's looking to punch you in the mouth. That never goes together. That never goes together. So I don't know, man. Like I said, I mean, and then again, the first game of the season, Florida. I mean, I know a lot's gonna be made about it, win or loss. There's gonna be a lot of commentary on it, things that we did good, things that we didn't do well. win or loss. So, like I said, I'm gonna try to be as grounded and as level headed about it as I can be, whether we win or whether we lose. But I mean, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna
I
be
don't know.
hard.
I don't know, man. I mean, all this hype, Mario's doing this. It's his team. Blah 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 blah. I'm gonna be very critical if we lose because it's like, what are we doing here? What's the plan?
I don't know, man. I like I said, I can't. I mean, again, you can envision it. Like I said, if you're optimistic, you can envision it. Like, okay, yeah, I can see a win. Okay, well, maybe something like this could happen. Like you say, the chemistry situation. All right, we can see a loss. But like you said, I mean, in years past, excuse me, a loss like this, if there was a loss to occur, which again, I don't think we're gonna lose. A loss like that sets the team back. It sets the team back. It sets expectations back. And but then you'll have some individuals that are still waving the flag of, well, it's just one game. It wasn't a conference game. We can still turn around, run the table, and still end up having a better year than them. While that's still true, but that doesn't make losing to Florida any better. It doesn't.
I
You
agree.
know what I mean? So again, like I said, everything is in our favor to win this game. Everything is in our favor. The media's behind us. Um,
Payton is very behind us. Josh Payton's leading the band.
I don't know because, like I said, I saw something today. Whoever that was, they were talking about. We could go undefeated. So I think, I think they're leading the band. But like I said, I mean, yeah,
Josh
Josh
Payton
Pate.
said we're going undefeated.
I thought Josh Pate said 11-1.
No,
Oh
he said
well.
really 12-0. Then if anything, 11-1.
Oh. And but you know what's so interesting about that is that you are a big time media personality and your job is to cover a lot of teams. So for us to say, and again, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt that he's done his due diligence, that you feel like that, well, even though the other teams have made some improvements, I'm going to still say Miami's better. But again, I gotta understand that Josh Pay's a little compromised because you've been to Miami back to back years. You've sat down with Coach Cristobal and everything like that, and you believe what's going on over there. You know what I mean? So I don't think you've gotten that access from another program like you've gotten it at Miami. I don't think you've sat down with Brent Fry at VT. You know what I mean? You haven't sat down with Alice Golish like this over at USF. You haven't sat down with Brom in Louisville. You know what I mean? So
I'm not
I,
trying to take shots, but I can't trust anybody's opinion that you went and saw the team and it's like, all right, or you sat down with the coach. It's like I just can't trust your opinion because you're biased. You know what I'm saying? It's like I
that's
just
how I
can't.
feel.
Hmm?
That's how I feel. That's how I feel. Like I can't. I mean, I can't because again, the thing about it when you're watching it, because what they were talking about, like what I saw, I saw a statement like, man, they got like a SEC defensive line out there, and it's like, okay, well, when you say SEC defensive line, that means different things because every SEC defensive line is not top tier. So when you say SEC defensive line, to me, that's just an all encompassing talking point because at the same time,
Yeah, because Vandy's in the SEC, right? That's the SEC.
Vandy's in the SEC. I don't think a lot of people are not too hype on Oklahoma's defensive line. Florida's in the SEC. I don't think too many people are writing home about the defensive line. Tennessee's up there. I know they got James Pierce, but so I mean, what does that?
Oklahoma's
I
gonna have
mean,
a rude awakening.
huh?
Oklahoma's gonna have a rude awakening.
Yeah, so I mean, so like I say, I mean, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know what that means in 2024 when someone says, "All right, they have a SEC defensive line." I don't know what that means.
I mean, Marley Cook plays for Miami, right? So I don't think he's SEC. He played for
Middle Tennessee.
Tennessee State, and and one more person keeps trying to hype Marley Cook and punch him in the mouth. I'm like, Marley Cook was part of the team that blew us out, man. Stop that shit.
I mean, but but again, like people were really hype about the young guy that we got from Purdue last year. The small guy,
Dean.
yeah, Branson Dean. Like they were hype about him because the whole aspect was, well, his size is irrelevant. Like they went and got him for a reason. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't really like, to be honest. I don't care about the body type aspect because, to be honest with you, um, we've done relatively well defensive line wise when we're talking about size. Now, recruiting wise, that's a different discussion. But we cannot say that it may be a poor man's SEC line, but we can look back and say RJ McIntosh, Ken Norton, Chad Thomas, and who do we have on the other edge? Garvin.
Norton. Norton.
No, I'm talking about in
Yeah,
DN.
Donovan Garden was a young.
Garden.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So on paper, that looks like a SEC defensive line. It's not a.
Joe Johnson too, right?
Yeah, Joe Johnson was there. Yeah. So I mean,
We were
so
nice.
that's what I'm saying. So I feel like we've had.
Our linebacker was weak. It was just
Yeah.
some weak. It was all we couldn't. We didn't have it all together at one.
No, we had
Yeah.
good. I mean, oh yeah, I know you don't like the what up studio. I
Shaq
know you don't like
Quarterman, but Pinkney and them was a
Quarterman
little
and
bit out
Pinkney
of
and them,
place.
but I thought they were good.
But this is what I say about that. To me, it was more so the fact that they didn't have anybody pushing them in practice. The only person that actually had someone pushing them on a day-to-day basis was Michael Pinkney. Because what's the man name? His last name was Owens. He ended up
Oh
transferring
yeah,
to
Darian
Houston.
Owens. You know
Darian
what?
Owens.
From Orange Park, he was
Yeah,
he was a beast. He blew out his knee
yeah. But
and came back and wasn't quite the same.
he was the only one that was consistently
We
that
ain't
I
had no
heard was
depth. You're
pushing.
right. They had to
Yeah,
play
yeah,
the
yeah,
whole game.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
thought
yeah,
about that. Them
yeah.
three
So
linebackers pretty much played the entire game. Who
and then
who
it,
who expelled them? Like they remember they started as freshmen. It was like this phenom. Oh, all three freshmen started, and it was like I remember bragging about it. And they lived up to the bill. I gotta give it to them. That freshman year, I was like, boy, them boys. But it just seemed like they third. I mean, they freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. They ain't never had nobody to come in to expel them in the game where you could be like, okay, what's the name in and boom, 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 we getting rest. They had to play the whole game their entire career.
and
That's where
that's what.
Manny. That's where Manny messed up. That he didn't.
Yeah,
He didn't know how to recruit linebackers.
yeah. And the guys that Manny did get, like we ended up turning Mike Smith into a linebacker. We ended up turning Keontre Smith into a linebacker.
Yeah,
Who was
that was
another guy that we ended up?
yeah.
Romeo Finley, the striker position, that was essentially just another linebacker. So we over recruited the safety position, and when those guys displayed that they didn't have any range, we're just gonna put you in a box. And to me, that was somewhat of disingenuous because I know people talk about Keontre Smith a lot, but Keontre Smith's recruitment is one of those ones that I kind of remember, and it was like people were ecstatic
He
about
was a
getting
head
Keontre
buster,
Smith. Yes,
man.
because he
They
was
need to
a
catch.
enforcer at safety. Yeah,
Yeah, he should have slimmed up more than bulk up. I think.
but that's what they wanted him to do. They wanted to play linebacker because he didn't have the range
Yeah,
to be a
I guess
safety.
we're opposite. You know, you see what they did to James Williams. They bulked him up, and
Well, I mean, we saw that. I mean, everybody saw that. Should have saw that year one. Because it's like y'all are comparing a man to Sean Taylor, and it's like it ain't that. It never was that. That man was more Ray Ray Armstrong than anything, and I'm just happy. Hopefully that in the NFL he, you know, meets expectations. You know what I
But
mean?
what I
But
can say is, I'll never forget that game when I seen them play him press coverage. And that was the first. Look, I've been the main James Williams criticized. I mean, I've been smoking him. But when I seen that game, I was so impressed. I said, boy, we supposed to be using him in press coverage his entire career. They couldn't get off the line because he was long, tall, got a little strength. He ain't the strongest, but I mean, if them long arms like that get on you, it's hard to get off the line of scrimmage. I said, man, we could have had him matched up on whoever they main target, whoever the like. Let's say, baby Georgia, I'd have put him on Brock Ewert, Brock, wherever they tight end. You get him.
but
Mr.
yeah,
Jane Williams, you stick him. That's your man. You don't worry about nothing else. That's your man. Wherever he go, you go. That's how
but that
simple I would
was
have made it for
But we
him.
did that against Clemson though, and Buddy destroyed them.
No, but they ain't
yeah, but had a
destroy him.
game. He had a game. He had a game. We'll say that. He had a game. He had a game.
They ain't really
Nah,
do
he had
that.
like 2 touchdowns that game.
And
He had
and
two.
I ain't gonna listen. And I ain't gonna blame him if he did it one game and he didn't do as well. If you just gonna do one game, I mean, it takes some work. You know what I'm saying? But when I seen him first do that, I said, man, that's what he's supposed to been doing.
Yeah,
But
but like I said, we had two staffs that came in and was like, we're gonna let you do what you want to do. We're not
you
we're
know
not we're
what?
not
That's
we're not gonna
interesting.
enforce it that you do
Hold
this.
on. I'm glad you said that because I just came off of Coach Hayes. I seen y'all. I'm finna click over there. Listen, he just said this. He said Jane Williams when he was in high school. He was so smart. This is what he said. Now he was so smart that he seen stuff that they didn't see, so they just let him do whatever he want. I said that's a lie. I said he played the boo game and made the staff let him feel the entitlement he thought he needed, or you know how these kids is entitled. You know how the all-star player. Yeah. Hey man, I go somewhere else. You ain't gonna play me. Almost kind of like he did Miami. I'm playing safe. I ain't playing no linebacker. You feel me?
That's what
So
he did.
he ain't been like that.
Yeah, that's what he did.
He ain't smart. They let him do what he wanna do. No, he wanted to roam on that field. He didn't want to listen to nobody. He wanted to do what the hell he wanted to do. But them NFL boys get you right.
Yeah, so I think he'll be fine. But since you here, studio, I want to ask you this question. The first four games. What are your thoughts on the three first games being in Florida, and then immediately having to go 2,000 miles across the country? Do you think that has any impact or will have any impact on the team?
They say history like to repeat itself. So that little fourth game, is it a bye week?
It's a bye
Gave
week
them
after the game.
after the game.
Yeah.
Oh, well, at least it's before the bye week. That might be, maybe the game after we done traveled 2,000 miles there, got us a nice little victory, 2,000 miles back, feeling a little lousy on the bye, and maybe we go to that bye war again. So I don't know.
Yeah. Me and Cuban feel like it's gonna be interesting to see how that works itself out, especially depending on how physical that Florida game is. And going right into FAM, which FAM is a little bit better than most, well, majority of HBCU teams, just based on the players that
They
they are
hit and
able to
miss.
get.
Some years they'll have a potent, and some years they hit and miss. I say the first week, well, while we kind of like scan all the teams, see what they got, we'll have a clear picture. Even though it's week one, we'll get a little, idea, a little how is everybody, depth charts are. Cause everybody hiding their depth charts. Nobody want to know who, you know, that become this secret thing now.
Yeah. So, But I've been on here 2 hours, man. Probably will get off. I just wanted to check in. It's been a while, but we're gonna get back on the roll. Seasons next week. But
This week, this weekend.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about our
Georgia
season.
Tech might knock off Florida State. I told them, I say 4 out of 7 times. Last 4 out of 7 they got them. Georgia Tech like 3-1 the last one. Now Florida State beat them last, but them two before that, Georgia Tech dropped them, and they got to go to Ireland. Georgia Tech got experience in Ireland. You might already have a little fan base already there. And then I looked at the fact that okay, if y'all gonna tell me all your starting players didn't play the Georgia game, that means the second stream and third stream played. And you mean to tell me you did that much in the portal to cover the disparity of a 63-3 game? I don't know. I don't know. That's a big. Is DJU enough to cover that disparity?
I don't know. So you taking Georgia Tech?
I took a friend 2020 bet. I said I like Georgia Tech and I like Miami. It's a double bet. So the only way you gonna hit me if both of us, if y'all win and we lose, you double up me. If y'all
Okay.
lose and we win, I double up you. We could break even. Both of us take care of business.
Okay. Cuban, what you think? Georgia Tech or Florida State?
I can never root for Florida State, so I'm going for Georgia Tech.
Boy, Haynes King, that 5 wide. They got that running back. You know they got Gore, Thomas Gore from us, starting at D tackle. The other dude that came back. They got a transfer dude. They nice. They stat list. All right. Georgia Tech had Louisville 28-10 first half, that first game of the year last year. They just collapsed that fourth quarter. I don't know what happened. 16 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. They ain't gonna let that happen again. And they in Ireland. Florida State gonna go in there thinking it's key. They thinking.
Uh,
Listen, I had to look up these stats because my homeboy he's a similar fan, and his cousin a Gator, and I'm a Hurricane. And I said, you sitting back, key because you gonna get to laugh at whoever lose out of Miami and Florida. If Miami lose, y'all gonna be laughing at me. If Florida lose, you're gonna be laughing at your cousin. I said, no, don't sit back and kiki, because y'all game is the first game of the college year, and ESPN wrote this article. They mad. They
oh
fired
yeah,
a lot of people. Y'all
yeah.
thinking we had something to do with keeping y'all out of this championship. We gonna embarrass your ass on national TV on the first game of the year, just like Mario did with the knee. Okay, all right. You think this is it's gonna be fun? Ooh, I can't wait. I was just drop that shit. I don't give a damn about no Florida State undefeated. Mind, no, we got 20 years of ass whooping to give away. I don't care about none of them being good. I just care about us destroying shit, going to the and whooping ass, taking names. Damn all that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
I
I'm
got a
exposed.
question.
Hold
Is
on, one more thing before you go. I know I got a little late. I'm mad I late. Listen, I exposed the similar fans too. Dude told me. He said if a similar ever come up to a Miami player and tell you they going for y'all over Florida, they are liars. They hate Miami way more than they do Florida.
Florida.
Because we
Yeah.
done cost them too many national championships and they're bitter. And
Oh
they're
yeah.
liars. Call them out. No, you ain't going for us. Don't go for us. You're a liar. Don't go for us. That's all I got to say about a similar.
Yeah.
Don't let them lie to you.
Yeah.
question: Who's better, DJU or little dude? What's buddy's name from Florida State last year?
Oh, Jordan Travis.
Jordan Travis.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh
Jordan
man.
Travis all day. I watched the growth in him. I watched him
I don't
win.
know, man. Jordan
I
Travis
watched
just
him
throws.
win that
I think it's
Clemson
a
game.
I think it's a wash, man. I already
No,
get.
bro.
I gave
George
my
Trevor
opinion
know
about
he
Jordan
know he
Travis.
got that it factor where he know like boy I gotta do this. I might not got the skin in the ability where I'm gonna just carve you with my arm. But I got the ability to know, oh, I gotta get this first down. I'm from the sky. He reminded me of Russell Wilson.
Nah, man, he be throwing just shit up there. I don't
I
know.
don't know, man.
Jordan Travis
I
be
think.
throwing these lollipops and just he closes his eyes, just throw that ball in the air, man. I don't
I,
know.
I think if you could have put DJU on that same team last year with Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, those guys with their catch radius, I think I think DJU would have looked better. But I think I'll say this: I think Jordan Travis had a better supporting cast, or will have a better or had a better supporting cast than what DJU had, especially from a receiver position. So by default, I'll say Jordan Travis is better just because I don't think DJU gonna have the same type
Au
of.
contraire, mon frère.
So I'll say that.
According to the similar fan that I've known for 30 years, plus years,
They say DJU
claim
better.
they're going to be way more deadlier because of their receivers. They were like, oh, Johnny Wilson was just big and slow. He wasn't really all that. Keon Coleman, he was okay, the athlete, but he was like, we got speed all across the board. I said, oh my goodness. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I mean on paper, on paper, they got some stuff on. Like I say, they would have got Jalen Brown, which that was people were high on him. Hakeem Williams, one of the guys that got that played last year. So I mean, on paper they look good, but we'll get to see it. Um, my prediction first game, I'm about to go with Florida State, man. I'm about to go with Florida State.
And I'm subscribing from this damn channel. What the hell's wrong with you, Shay?
Bro, I have to go with Florida State, man. I just feel like they're a better team. I feel like they're a better team. But it could go either way. But if I had to put some money on that, I would probably go Florida State. But I can see it go either way. I can see it go either way.
Mm.
But I tell you what, they do lose though. It's gonna be a long, long season. Cause boy, I know Kirk Herbstreit gonna do something petty. Cause like you said, studio,
Uh,
if they so mad about getting left out the playoffs, y'all supposed to use that as motivation. Y'all supposed to bulldoze everybody this particular year. I don't think they good to do that, but that's
They
supposed to be the
showed against
mindset.
Georgia.
Oh man, 63-3, man. That's
Backup
crazy.
players should have did a little bit better than that.
Them jokers that got to the point they went wildcat out there, man.
they had that white
I
boy
mean,
running
they
loose
can't
all
really
over the
call it
field.
complete passes, and they can't right now. I mean, DJ Lee looking kind of dink and donkey.
But you know the thing about that though, I heard somebody bring that up, and I'm gonna say that we gonna get out of here. I heard somebody bring that up, but my thing was, who said that Florida State was supposed to be this prolific passing team? Like Mike Norvell and Alice Atkins, they trying to run the football. So I don't. So if they say they can't complete no passes, I don't look at that as a demerit to them because it's like that ain't what Mike Norvell doing. Y'all want to run the football and get some one-on-one matchups. Y'all are not trying to throw the ball to open the run. Y'all are trying to run the ball to open up the pass. With that being said, man, what's y'all last words, man? I'm gonna get on up out of here.
There you go.
So what's your last words, studio? I'm gonna get up out of here.
Um, my last word is, man, listen. Florida State, the last four times game day came to a Florida State game, they 0-4 and they got blowed out. So the last time game they came to a Florida State game, Miami beat them 52-10. Okay, when this first started, Oregon blowed them out 63. Another one of Mario's teams destroyed them. So apparently, when game day comes to Florida State lately, they just something happens to them. So when they go to Ireland and Dublin, them
It's a
boy
wrap.
better be ready and not think this a key game. Or Georgia Tech and Caden King gonna go in there and shred them, and they
Okay.
gonna be embarrassed. Game one of the Natty of the 2024-25 season. They the first game of the year.
Yeah. All right. Cuban, what you got?
Shakur is a duck. Don't like who he's fighting.
Who you fight?
Uh,
Who you fighting?
I don't know, some random dude there, some random ass dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna see who you fighting.
Yeah, he's fighting some random dude. And no more excuses this year. I'm not trying to hear any injuries excuses. Pops better be ready. Whomever better be ready. Shit, it don't matter. I'm not here to hear any excuses this year. So y'all can keep all that lame shit. Oh, it's because of this, because of that. I'm not trying to hear none of that stuff. Mario went in all in. We need at least, I mean, it has to be either or a ACC championship or a playoff appearance. Anything outside of that is a failure. I'm sorry.
Okay. And my final words are Cam Ward is all on you. With that being said, we out of here.
Bye.
Peace.